Hi, this is Mary Kay. I'm going to paint this picture of Wild Lilac in full bloom. I've taped it down right there. I don't like that this top mountain here is where these are and that this comes there. I'm just going to move this mountain over a little bit, I think. So, or maybe I'll move this one here. I'll just keep this one the same. This is a nice spot. What I love about this photo is the layers of mountains that we can see. I think there's even some here, and there's back here. I love layers of mountains. They're so easy to paint. Just pale, actually that might be sky with those clouds back there. And then we have this big one here. What I think I'll do is I'm gonna just keep it where it is. And I'll just change the flowers. You can move these around if you feel like you don't like the composition. This goes into very pale here. And I don't even want to like put where these flowers are because I'm going to do those with a sponge. So what I did was I just sketched in those mountains. They're right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of natural sponge. I'm going to wet it, get it all wet, and squish out as much water as I can. And I'm going to take a little bit of shampoo, dilute shampoo, and put it on my sponge because otherwise I'll ruin it. I won't be able to get the Pebeo out. Ah, I got a blob of shampoo right there. So I'm going to work that through. I don't want that much shampoo in there, so I'm going to just wipe a lot of that off on this paper towel. Okay, so I've got my sponge ready to go. It's got shampoo in it. And what I'm going to do is now my fingers are really slippery from that shampoo. I don't think that was dilute. I think that was full strength. I'm not used to that. I'm going to use Pebeo drawing gum. It's a type of masking liquid frisket. I poured some in this little container here, and now I'm going to dip my sponge into it. And I'm going to make the tops of this Wild Lilac. So you can see if I just use this sponge the way it is, I'm going to get kind of an odd pattern. So what I really have to do is twist the shape of this every time I touch my paper. So let's try this. I'm going to put some flowers up into these here. I don't want it to look like, oh yeah, that's just sponge. It's the same pattern over and over again. So like I said, I'm twisting this each time, trying to get a different little stamp out of it. Some of these come all the way down over here. Okay, I think that's enough Pebeo. I need to rinse this out right away or I'll ruin the sponge. So here we go into the water. It's very foamy now. Very foamy now. Okay. There's my foamy stuff. I'll move that over. Here's my clean water. Set that there. One thing I'm noticing right now is that I don't like where that dark hill is. I don't like that my top of my flowers are right at the top of that. I think I just need to move it over a little bit. I said I was going to do that. I'm just going to move this over. I'm not going to erase it right now because I don't have the right eraser. I'm going to let this down here dry while I paint the sky. So I have a 3/4 inch brush, and the sky is, wow, I love those. I love those little ridge of white clouds in there. This is called aerial perspective. When you're looking through the air, the mountains that are farther away are lighter because of all the particulate matter in the sky. So I'm going to wet my sky. I'll paint my sky wet into wet. I might leave just a little bit of that dry, whoa, where did I get that from? The board, I guess. Leave my set of clouds kind of dry. See what happens here. Okay, just getting that sky nice and wet. Let's see, that color, I've been using an awful lot of French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna lately, and it's just making that beautiful gray blue color, so I'm going to stay with that. This paper that I'm using is Kilimanjaro 140-pound cold press. You can see it's buckling a little. I usually use Arches 140, but it's just been out everywhere, so I had to buy some of this Kilimanjaro. This is Cheap Joe's brand. It's not as good. That's the top of those little wispy clouds. I don't want to fully paint that in so that it's solid. I like little streaks in it. And now I need to get down here by the mountain tops. This should be even lighter. Just below that little set of clouds. And I'm going to this is just dirty water. And I'm going to paint the tops of these clouds. I see a little bit of warmth in that sky right in there. Do I want to use yellow or burnt sienna? Maybe raw sienna or gold with a little bit of burnt sienna might do the trick. A little bit of clean burnt sienna. Let me get a spot in my palette that's clean. That's too brown. Oh, that's kind of it right there. Okay, I just want to, it's really just kind of a dirty brush. I'm just going to put this in and see what it looks like. There's a little bit of warmth down there. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave that in. I'm going to put it up here too because I see it sort of blending in up here. Okay, I'm going to stop. I do want to just soften this line right here. So what I did was I got my brush wet, then I dried it in my paper towel. So this is what's called a thirsty brush. And I'm just softening that. Maybe it looked better before, I don't know. One thing I want you to notice is that when I painted this sky and I got to this mountain here, I put one color here and then I stopped painting and then I started painting again. So my color didn't go whoop over the top. That's a really common mistake people make when they hit a mountain. They go over the top of it, but what you need to do is paint it, stop, and then keep painting on the other side. And that's going to make the mountain look like it's in front of those clouds. So my sky's slightly damp. If I paint that top mountain in now, it's going to blur. I'm just going to give it a minute. So my next layer is going to be, really it's the same color. So it's French ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm going to put just the tiniest bit of permanent rose into this to give it a purple mountains majesty. I'm going to just keep painting. Notice that the top of these mountains are a little bit darker than the bottoms of these mountains. Well, actually, this one goes like dark, light, dark. So I'm going to start right here, just using this brush, my 3/4 inch, and I'm painting the shape of that mountain there. You could use a round brush here. So now I don't have as much paint in my brush, and so as I bring this down, it gets softer. So it looks like there's fog in the valley below that peak. And then it gets a little more pale blue. So I can add a little bit of more French Ultra to the side of that petal, and I get that lighter blue. And I touch my paper towel, maybe even, so there's hardly any paint in my brush at all right now. I'm just trying to keep this so pale. And then I'm adding that layer. So I just added that layer right there. And now I'm going to come over here. Now this layer right here is a little bit darker than the fog above it. So I just want to get this to go a little darker and then back to pale at the bottom of that. Right in here, I have a very pale green, and then this is a very dark green. So to make that pale green, I'm going to use Antwerp blue. Switching my blues here. I'm going to put a little bit of raw sienna with it. Oh, that was yellow there, bumblebee yellow, or hence a yellow medium. That's actually pretty close, a little burnt, a little raw. That's pretty close. So this layer in here, I'm not going to paint specific trees or houses or anything. I'm just going to put that very pale green in there. There might be a streak of it over here. And now I'm going to make my dark green. My dark green is much more Antwerp blue and much less water and burnt sienna. This is the darkest spot on the whole painting. So this is where I really want to have a lot of paint in my brush. And this will make the lilac really show. Okay, that's a nice dark green, but I'm still adding more and more paint. And to get it even darker, I'm going to add some French ultramarine blue. Oh, there we go. That's what I wanted. So this, now what I'm painting right now is this mountain right here. So Oh, it's so dark. I love that color. And I'm painting right over the Pebeo that is the top of those lilac blossoms. I just added a half a brush full of water to this. Now I'm gonna move this so I can see what the greens underneath the lilac look like. So they're much brighter greens in here under that mountain. So I need to make a little brighter green now. So I rinsed out my brush, and it's gonna be Antwerp blue. I'll put it over here. And this one's gonna be yellow. This here. Let's mix this up. And we get that little brighter green. I'm gonna put a little bit of burnt sienna into that to gray it down a little. All right, so now I'm painting in white. These lighter greens at the bottom of these bushes. Just trying to change these greens up some. I don't mind it when I don't mix enough paint, because every time I mix it up, I have to change the color a little bit, and that's a good thing. I like how this is sort of blossoming up there. It's blooming up into the darks. While I have this in my brush, I'm just gonna add a few streaks to this mountain here so it's not so dull. We can tell that it's supposed to be like, I don't know. It's hard to tell what's right behind that. I don't want my eye to go here. I just don't want it to be bored. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back to the dark greens, because the bottom of this painting and these corners, we don't want our eye to be going out here. So now I'm gonna make more green. So this is my favorite green. It's Antwerp blue and burnt sienna. I'm gonna paint these corners. Even make some purples in there. So French and permanent rose makes purple. I'm just trying to fill the bottom of my paper in with paint. That's going to be not my major focus, but also my eye's not going to go there. I want it to just bring my eye into the painting. I don't think that's dark enough here at the bottom. I'm going to try some more darks. I'm going to make my favorite green again, Antwerp and burnt sienna, and add some of it in here. I see a little problem happening up there in my mountain. Do you see what's happening? I like all those changes in there, but I'm not liking this bloom too much. I have to decide how to handle this bloom. So my dark green is getting, this is called a watermark or can't think of the word. Charging. It charged in there, so I just played with a thirsty brush there, and now I'm going to go back and make some of that green and try to repaint it. So I wish that hadn't happened. It's a little bit of a setback. So now I'm repainting that mountain, hoping that it won't recharge. Maybe it'll charge the other way. Maybe this is more damp. The wetter paint will charge into the drier paint. Okay, I kind of like that. While this is wet down here, I'm going to sign my name. This is a piece of bamboo that's been chiseled with a knife to a nice bright, nice fine point. And I'm going to just write my name in cursive, well above where it'll mat out. I'm just writing it like it's a pencil, digging into the damp paper. Mary Kay S. period. Jolly. With a C around it. And I'm going to go over that with some more paint to make it go into the little mark that I made so it darkens the whole name. I'll get rid of my fingerprint. Okay, I actually kind of like that. It makes a dramatic look right there. I'm going to get the blow dryer and blow this so that I can do the next step. Okay, this is called a pickup. So I just dried that with the blow dryer. Whenever you're using Pebeo, your paint has to be very, very dry before you try to lift up your Pebeo. So I dried it. This is called a pickup. And if the paint is dry, when I do this, I'm gonna leave the paper very white. But if the paint's damp, it's gonna smear and I won't get that nice white paper showing. The trickiest, well, one of the trickiest parts of watercolor, transparent watercolor. If you use opaque white paint, you don't have this problem. You can just paint over the top. But when you're painting in transparent watercolor, which is what I love to do, you have to think ahead and keep your whites. One way or the other, you have to paint around them, or you can use masking. There's other tricks you can do. So what I'm doing now is making the white show up again, which is going to be my purple flowers on these Wild Lilac. The big blob there, I think it'll be okay. So now you can see that those flowers are really going to show up against that dark mountain, which is what we want. Now here's a little bit of smear. There's some of that green smeared into my whites in there, but that's not as crucial as the other parts. I think it'll be okay. Now, I could use the sponge, but sponges take up so much paint. I'm going to paint in my flowers with a brush. I call this a museum pencil brush because you pick them up in museums. This one is from Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco. So I'm going to make more. Now, that's not the purple I want here. I want a nice bright pinkish purple. You could use permanent violet. Actually, that does look good. That's just pure violet. If you make your own, you can use either Antwerp or French and permanent rose. That's I kind of like the pure violet. I'm going to go with that. So this is permanent violet bluish. I'm just going to paint these very pale now. All those little white areas are going to be pale violet. So the difference between violet and purple is that violet is a single wavelength and purple is red and blue mixed together. So your eye sees it as violet or purple. But it's, if you separate the wavelengths, you'd see that there's really two colors there. Okay, I'm filling these in lightly. Now this is a little darker. Once I'm filling it all in. I'm leaving little highlights and little light spots. Now what I'm going to do is go in with some purple, the purple that I made, and put it at the bottom of these. So it's shadows in the blossoms, at the bottom edges of all these blossoms, even up right up here. Okay, I'm going to make a little more. So that was permanent rose and French ultramarine blue. Just mix that until I get how blue I want this purple. There, that's about right. It's kind of a, there we go. Oh, so now when it's kind of damp and it'll blossom into the tops of that lighter violet. And I think that's beautiful when they blend together on the paper. So really this is kind of the last step. I'm just kind of shadowing the bottoms of these blossoms. Just have to be a little bit patient, but you can see where this is going. These are definitely in the shadows down here. There can be some highlights. Darks often have very white highlights. Even these up here, there's just individual little I don't know where I got those spots from. I don't want my eye going out the sides of this painting, so I want these all to be a little darker. I want my eye to be brought up this way. So I'm gonna fill these in a little bit. I can even go a little darker with these blues. I can add more blue to it. And I think it's getting there. It's looking like these flowers. I'm tempted just to stop here because I don't like to overdo paintings. This, I feel like maybe my eye, I don't know. What do you think? This should be all a little bit darker so that my eye goes up more and not getting stopped there. So I will add some darks into here to kind of darken this little light green spot. same green I made before, that dark green. Antwerp and burnt sienna with a little bit of French. Okay, so I guess I could just keep overdoing this, or I could stop, because you can say what you have to say and then get out. As soon as it really starts to feel like blossoms on top of Wild Lilac, I need to stop. So the time that you stop is one brush stroke before the next brush stroke makes your painting worse. And that's the trick, is to know when the next stroke makes it worse. Or as soon as you make it, take it off and stop. I think I'm going to stop.